Welcome back to the Universalis podcast. I am Martin Kochanski, the creator of Universalis, and in this episode I will be looking at the highlights of the week ahead, starting with Sunday the 7th of April. The week begins with what is now called Divine Mercy Sunday. It used to be called Low Sunday because it is the time when, after the exaltation of Easter, we are coming back down to earth. I should correct that last statement in two ways. We are not coming back, but forward. And the earth we are coming down to is a new earth. I might even say that we are a new us. Look at the Gospel for Sunday. The apostles are new men. Jesus gives them responsibilities that the old apostles would not have been capable of undertaking. In their new role, they are still clearly apprentices. They still have a lot to learn. But then, in our own lives, so are we. When we have gone through a big experience, we come out of it new. And it takes us time to learn that new life. The resurrection raises big questions which need to be answered. What happened? You might even say, what is the risen Jesus? To ask these questions is not a matter of curiosity. The different possible answers have important theological consequences. The risen Jesus is not the old one. He is not back the way he was on Maundy Thursday afternoon. He was not revived after a near-death experience. He was not brought back to life the way Lazarus was. Once again, it is not back, but forward. God did not undo the crucifixion either. God is not capable of making things not have happened. That would be as nonsensical as God making a four-sided triangle. In the story of Jesus, and in our own story, what has happened can never unhappen. What God has done with the crucifixion is more wonderful than unhappening would have been. He has taken it, dreadful as it was, and made something out of it. He does the same in our own lives. When something terrible has happened, something you would give your life not to have happened, whether it is something you did or something that was done to you, God will never unhappen it. God will, in the end, if you let him, integrate it into the wholeness of what makes you you, and it will be glorious. Let's be careful about this. You cannot predict how God will do this or what the outcome will be. While you are in the agony of having experienced it, whatever it is, thinking what might come out of it in the end will be no use at all. And if your friends tell you the same things I have just said, your friends are no use either. Nevertheless, when you get to sleep at last and wake up, and have about 5 seconds of freedom before you realize that what has happened has still happened, remember that God loves and heals. Whatever the loved, healed, resurrected and immortal us is going to be, it will be the whole of us, and not just selected highlights. After all, the King and ruler of the universe himself has a wounded body. The apostles saw Jesus in his risen, still wounded body, and the experience was crucial enough for Thomas to ask for and get the same. That word body is vital here. There is a kind of false spirituality that denies or despises the body. It preaches that only the spirit is real, and the body is either unreal or an unfortunate accident, something our true self is somehow imprisoned in, and the sooner it escapes, the better. Scriptwriters like to present religious people like this on the screen because it saves them thinking. But it is a lie. We are spirit and we are body. Christians do not have bodies. Christians are embodied beings. Yes, it is true that on death we leave this body behind, but what that brings us to is just a lame, truncated, provisional state that lasts only until the general resurrection restores us as whole beings on a new level. one which today we can only point vaguely towards, or talk about in metaphorical terms as St. Paul does. But whatever our final state is, it is definitely a wholeness of body and spirit. The nature of Jesus' risen body is a clear indication of this truth. It is a risen body, but it is still a body. It can eat. It can be touched by the apostles' hands. It is not just a ghost. And thus, right at the beginning, Christianity is saved from a dangerous deviation, one which would have us hating the world and denying our true nature. At the end of their conversation, Jesus says to Thomas, "Blessed are those who have not seen and still believe." This is true, but it is important not to misunderstand it. The apostles are lucky because they have lived through it all and have seen direct evidence, and so they believe with reasons for their belief. We also believe for reasons, although they are different reasons. We believe because we believe in the general reliability of the Gospels, and we believe in the general reliability of the institution which interprets them to us. This is almost too obvious to mention, but the Reformation promoted the idea that faith has nothing to do with reason. You are blessed if you believe for no reason at all. The Reformers decried human reason as being hopelessly corrupt and rejected reason as a valid category of religious thought. Faith and faith alone was all that was allowed. The trouble with this doctrine is that faith is not the opposite of reason, but a kind of reason. It is solidified reason, born of trust and experience. I have not seen like Thomas, but I believe, and I don't believe out of thin air. This is not some kind of pure faith with all the reason excluded. I believe because I believe that the Gospels are reliable, and that the Church is reliable who proposes the Gospels for my enlightenment. Faith in science is similar after all. I do not believe that strychnine is poisonous because I fed it to my uncle and he died. I believe that strychnine is poisonous because I am told it is by people expert in medicine, and I trust their judgment and their motives and the sources of their knowledge. Faith and reason are, if you like the left leg and the right leg of the mind. You can call them opposites if you want, but you just try walking on one without the other. The Annunciation is the biggest event in human history after the fall of man. It is the instant of the Incarnation, and for this reason, for many centuries, the year in England began on the 25th of March and not the 1st of January. It makes terrible headaches for historians. This year, the Feast of the Annunciation had to be postponed from the 25th because of Holy Week and Easter Week, but it still celebrates the beginning of our redemption. Mary's yes to God exactly counteracts Eve's yes to the serpent and ends up not only undoing the damage, but bringing the human race to new greatness. One important question is worth asking. Could Mary have said no? People with an exaggerated respect for holy things might think that this is a bad question to be asking. How dare we question holy matters like this? But we really do need to ask. If Mary had not been able to say no, then she did not say yes. She could have made a yes noise with her mouth, but it would have had no meaning. Like the kind of doll where you pull a string and when you let go, the doll says "Mama," because it can do nothing else. The choice has to have been a real choice. We, as human beings, are neither puppets in history nor mere spectators of it. We make the history. Every choice you make is a real choice. Psychologists might say that some choices are less free than others. Let them. In every choice there is an element of freedom. The element may be big or small, but it is there. There is always a sense in which we could have answered the other way. What would have happened if Mary had said no? We don't know. That branch of history is unknowable because it has no reality. Whenever I make a choice too, the world that would have existed if I had done the opposite becomes forever unknowable. In giving us free will, God has given us the power to prevent whole worlds from coming into being. He has made us co-creators of the universe as it is and finally will be. That is our glory and our privilege. You can't say yes or no unless you have reasons for deciding. Here we enter a great mystery. To reduce God's question to, "Do you want to do what I want?" makes it too obscure for informed consent to be possible. To show Mary that her yes would change the entire course of human history and touch the lives of millions yet unborn would be too much for a young woman to handle. We can never know how it happened, but perhaps the real miracle of the Annunciation is that Mary could be placed at the very hinge of world history and not be overwhelmed by it. God also asks us things. He does not do it often. He never does it on a Marian scale, but sometimes on a scale which will change our lives and those of others. He asks as quietly as he can, not to overwhelm us. Part of our job as Christians is to keep ourselves able to hear him when he does ask us. We have to keep ourselves free of the noise of distractions that stop us hearing, and also free of the stiffness of spirit that could stop us listening. For the present age, prudence is the great vice. We don't want to do anything unless we know exactly what it will entail, and we even feel we have a right not to have the course of our lives derailed by what God asks. Who does he think he is, anyway? Such prudence is only crystallized fear. The defense against fear is love. The more at ease we are with God, the more we will trust him. And if he ever does ask us something, it will not be something that we cannot do. Among the patristic writers this week, I particularly noticed St. Theodore the Studite, a Byzantine monk writing around the year 800. You will find him in the readings for Friday. Theodore draws a parallel between the tree of paradise and the tree of the cross. One tree mingles good and evil, and the other tree does not cast us out of paradise, but opens the way for our return. The other week I mentioned Hans Urs von Balthasar and his idea of theodrama. You could call Theodore's kind of theology theomusic, because like music, it picks up themes and shows them recurring in different forms and different keys. No one quite knows what music is for, or why human beings have a gift for it, but it seems to be something to do with perceiving experiences spread across time, both as parts and as a whole. Musical theology, if you want to call it that, has us experiencing salvation history in just this way. That's all for this week. If you'd like to write to us about anything, email universalis@universalis.com. We look forward to hearing from you. Have a good week in every sense, and let's pray for one another. He is still risen.
Alleluia.